this class probably knows someone who has played football. Did they have any concussions? Were they injured on the field? How long was their career? As we all know, football is a dangerous sport. In fact, most sports are dangerous. But there is no question that football's physical contact, aggression-based tactics, and repetitive collisions are harmful to players. These characteristics have led to public awareness of brain injuries that occur due to football. Despite this, there have not been many solutions to improve the brain health of these athletes. My topic today is about the brain health of football players. There are 3 main points that I will discuss in the body of my speech. First, I will identify the problems that occur within a football player's brain because of irregular testing. My second point will analyze the causes of poor brain health in football players. And finally, my third point will present a solution to this problem. Let's begin with the problem of irregular testing. My first main point will identify the problem that football players face mentally because of irregular testing of their brain. According to a 2011 article by Christina Girardi that appeared in the Sports Lawyer's Journal, concussions happen all the time in football because it is a contact sport. A concussion is a mild traumatic brain injury where the brain impacts the interior of the skull because of, quote, a blow to the head, fall, or violent movement, end quote. Concussions can temporarily interfere with how the brain works and have the power to affect someone's memory, judgment, coordination, or balance. Something known as second impact syndrome occurs when a person experiences a concussion and then is impacted by another concussion shortly after. According to a study found in this article, 91.7% of repeat concussions occurred within 10 days of the player's first concussion. The study showed that once a player suffered from one concussion, they were more susceptible to another one because of the weak state of their brain. According to a 2019 article by David Koenig that was published in the British Journal of General Practice, repeated minor trauma, like concussions, to a football player's head increases their potential damages. One of these potential damages is early onset dementia or dementia in a retired player. The article mentions a 2002 death of a football player, Jeff Astle, who died at age 59 with early onset dementia, and it found that repeated heading of a heavy leather football had contributed to his illness. According to a 2018 article by Karen Mesquita, Richard Winberg, and Robin Green that appeared in the Journal of Clinical Neuroimage, a growing concern in the medical field regarding football players is that repeated concussions can cause late-life mild cognitive impairment, which is an earlier onset of Alzheimer's, or the neurodegenerative disease called chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which is known as CTE. According to the Mayo Clinic, CTE is a diagnosis that can only be made at autopsy by studying certain sections of the brain. Some symptoms of CTE include impulsive behavior, depression, short-term memory loss, emotional instability, or substance misuse. CTE symptoms don't develop after immediate head trauma, but after multiple years or decades of repeated head trauma. A study found in a 2018 article by Zachary Binney and Kathleen Beckyansky in the Neurology Journal states that, quote, results from autopsies of the brains of 202 deceased American football players, end quote. 111 of those players had played in the National Football League or NFL. Of those 111 players, quote, 110 or 99% received a neuropathologic diagnosis of CTE, end quote. Now that you are familiar with the brain health problems that occur in football players, I will now move on to my next area of discussion. My second main point will analyze the causes of poor brain health in football players. Many players believe that the National Football League has a large impact on their players' brain health. According to a 2017 article by Peter Benson that was published in the Journal of Sport and Social Issues, the NFL has pushed, quote, modest reforms, such as improved helmets, rules, and tackling techniques. Benson believes that this is just a public relations strategy to avoid scrutiny in the public and the eye of the media. According to a book entitled CTE, Media, and the NFL, Framing a Public Health Crisis as a Football Epidemic, that was published in 2019 and written by Travis Bell, Janelle Applequist, and Christian Dotson. Before March 2016, the NFL denied that CTE was a problem, even though they were given numerous amounts of research by renowned doctors that showed that repeated head trauma causes impairment. At a press conference 2 days before Super Bowl 50, NFL Commissioner Robert Goodell, when addressing the hazardous risks of playing football, said, quote, "There are risks in life. There are risks sitting on a couch." This received heavy media backlash, forcing the NFL to change their stance on CTE. According to a study conducted by Zachary Kerr, Stephen Marshall, Herndon Harding, and Kevin Gukewicz that was published in the American Journal of Sports Medicine in 2012. From 2001 to 2010, a study that consisted of 1,044 retired NFL players, the findings concluded that, quote, "Professional football players with a history of career concussions are at an elevated risk for depressive episodes later in life, compared to those retired players that did not have a history of concussions. This risk increases the greater number of concussions reported," end quote. From this information, it is very easy to infer that the lack of awareness about the dangers of concussions, testing for concussions, and self-reporting leads to uneducated players and ultimately leads them to poor mental health later in life. Since you now know about the causes of poor brain health in football players, I will now move on to some solutions. As you can imagine, creating a solution to a large public health problem would be extremely difficult. It would have to require legislative action. According to a 2014 article by Hosea Harvey that was published in the Yale Journal of Health Policy, Law, and Ethics, quote, "No public health interventions were developed in response to the growing awareness," end quote, "of brain health in football players prior to 2009. The article goes on to explain that the growing awareness of health risks in college sports and numerous professional athlete deaths, state legislative action was needed, thus making between 2009 and 2013, 49 states and the District of Columbia enacted sports laws. 3 of these laws include, number 1, a youth athlete who appears to have suffered from a concussion needs to be removed from play or practice at the time of the suspected concussion for a minimum of 24 hours. Number 2, that a youth athlete is cleared by a licensed healthcare professional before they begin to practice or play. And number 3, that each year, athletes, parents, and coaches receive education or an information sheet about recognizing the symptoms of concussions. Although each of these laws that I mentioned were directed strictly at youth athletes, the NFL has publicly advocated for these laws. Even after hours of research, it was hard to find more academic findings that led me to the solutions of brain injury in football players. Although we have known about the danger of concussions and head traumas for a while, there is still little scientific research or conclusions. In conclusion, today I discussed the topic of brain health in football players and how there is no regulated testing. There were 3 main points that I focused on in the body of my speech. First, I identified the problem in football players' brains that occurs because of the lack of regular testing. My second point analyzed the causes of poor brain health in football players. And finally, my third point of discussion looked at one of the solutions to this problem. Although football may be considered the most popular sport in America, it has not made great strides in protecting its athletes. Unfortunately, the football player that you might know might have suffered from multiple concussions or trauma to the head because of football, and they may be unaware. This is why action is needed. The testing and examination of a football player's brain is extremely important. Thank you.